I will examine and make comparative analysis of attitudes and beliefs towards masturbation in two different thought traditions, namely Christianity and Buddhism. What do you tell a 12-year-old that strokes his or her genital, who is interested in the pleasure they receive? There are no easy or straightforward answers to this question. Human sexuality and its consequences are issues every society has grappled with, from the early Greeks to modern societies, and it continues to be a controversial and spicy issue until this very day. There are various definitions of masturbation by sexologists, psychologists, and religious figures alike, and the various definitions have evolved over time. What is masturbation? Masturbation refers to an erotic stimulation, especially of one's own genitals, commonly resulting in orgasms, achieved by manual or other bodily contact exclusive of intercourse, by instrumental manipulation, occurs, by sexual fantasy, or a various combination of these agencies. In ancient Egypt, Christian myth has it that the gods Ra and Fa created other gods through masturbation. It is also believed that divine masturbation created the world and the annual flooding of the Nile, upon which Egyptians depended on for agriculture. In ancient Greece and Rome, masturbation was basically accepted as a safety valve, but as an inferior form of gratification and a subject of humor. The 4th century BCE Greek saint Diogenes masturbated in public, declaring the act the natural consequence of erection. Aristophanes' play Lysistrata from the same time period had women discussing dildos. Roman writers frequently mention masturbation, and they took utilitarian views rather than moral views. Who masturbates? Jane and Oscar Beyer proposed in 1876 that 99% of men and women have engaged in masturbation at some point in their lives. Various studies have been conducted on masturbation and included various subjects. It shows that 89% of physicians, 90+% of students, and 60% of lower class women masturbated. Although a decent majority of men and women masturbate, the frequency of masturbation is dependent on certain factors like age, class, marital status, etc. Masturbation is not an exclusive human activity. Animals also masturbate. For example, goats sometimes take their penises into their mouth and produce orgasms, in the process thus practicing autofellatio. Male monkeys also use their hands to shake and stimulate their penis. Also, animals improvise sex toys. For example, stags rub themselves against trees to ejaculate. Camels also press themselves against convenient objects. This raises interesting issues and questions about humanity and is linked to animals and the fact that we are not alone in our quest for pleasure. In Christian thought tradition, masturbation is generally viewed negatively and is synonymous with the word onania. The history of the world comes from the story of Onan in Genesis, which states, And Judah said unto Onan, Go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her. Raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his, and it came to pass, when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. I would like the above quote is self-explanatory, but I would like to point to the use of the word seed to refer to the male semen. Take a moment and think of the word seed and all the things and terms associated with seeds, like nurturing, caring, and preservation. Also, the views of Christianity have been affected by Leviticus 15:16 that states, And if any man's seed of copulation go out from him, then he shall wash all his flesh in water and be unclean unto evening. This passage from the Bible seems to imply that the passage of semen leads to uncleanness, which also adds a negative view to masturbation. Masturbation was thought to be considered a host of diseases and abnormalities. For example, masturbation was thought to have been the cause of syphilis, gonorrhea, constipation, vision and hearing problems, heartbeat irregularities, small or abnormally large penis, insanity, impotence, nymphomania, and tuberculosis. For most of history of the Western world, ideology and regulation have centered primarily on Roman Catholicism and the Vatican. Christianity was legalized in 313 by Roman Emperor Constantine, after which he convened the First Convention to begin a process of consolidation among fractionating sects. This convention led to a solution based on compromise on a range of issues. As a consequence, the Christian position on sex was that sex was acceptable not in itself, but only in marriage and then only in procreation. On non-marital and non-procreative sex, including masturbation, became ultimately condemned. Sects that didn't comply or accept with this position were named heresies and persecuted by the orthodoxy. St. Augustine could be credited for initiating the position of masturbation as a sin. In the 5th century, St. Augustine took the position that anything outside the natural use of sexual intercourse for procreation was a sin against nature itself. Women were penalized for using dildos, and in 1054, masturbation was officially condemned by Pope Louis X and St. Thomas Aquinas. This may seem ironic, but masturbation before or after marital intercourse has been explicitly permitted by Roman Catholic theologians by tradition established in 1748 by Alphonsus Ligori. Certain state laws in the United States could be interpreted as being against masturbation in the presence of someone else. For example, Michigan laws define as a felony any act of gross indecency in public or private, whether with the same or opposite sex. As of 2001, 6 states has laws prohibiting the distribution of sex toys. We can basically look at attitudes in the United States towards masturbation are generally negative. Views on masturbation vary among various Christian sects. The Mormons are the most restrictive, followed by Jehovah's Witnesses and Lutherans. On the other side of the spectrum, we have Unitarian Universalists who view masturbation as a natural, valid, and safe form of sexual expression. Buddhism. In Buddhism, pleasures are experienced and enjoyed through the sense organ are regarded as mean and detestable. Both thought tradition, that is Buddhism and Christianity, consider renunciation of sexual pleasure as positive. Buddhism, like Christianity, has traditionally discouraged masturbation. Buddhist monks and nuns taking vows of celibacy are also prohibited from masturbation. Sexual behavior with the same or opposite sex, where the genitals enter any bodily orifice, is punishable by expulsion from the monastery. Masturbation, when considered a serious offense, does not lead to expulsion, only confession before the monastery community. While masturbation is prohibited when a man or woman has entered the